We've talked a ton on this podcast about the many layers of being a successful actor. Sometimes we talk about the tips about acting. Sometimes it's about the business of show. We've even covered opportunities that are available for actors that don't include acting. Today, it's time we take a realistic approach and a realistic look for the actor to consider. That is, finding more auditions. With the actors' strike now over, there is a feeling that the floodgates are going to open and opportunities will explode for everyone. Well, that may or may not be the case. It's better to take a moment right now and apply a practical sensibility to your acting career and get more auditions. This is Casting Actors Cast.
It's time for another episode of Casting Actors Cast, insights for actors from a casting director. Here he is, your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello. And welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm a casting partner with McCorkle Casting in New York. And my name is Jeffrey Dreisbach. Welcome to the episode called Get More Jobs. This is episode number 287. Oh my gosh. Crazy, right? And we're just getting started. So thank you for joining us today. Hey, listen, check out the website, castingactorscast, all one word.com. There you're going to find additional information about the show, but you'll also see a place where we have a blog. It's called Jeff's Jots, and those are corresponding show notes to each of the episodes. They're just one page each, but they give you a whole sort of checklist of things that are discussed in each of those podcasts. It's sort of a great way to follow along if you're interested. There's also a forum that says dive into the talent pool. If you do that, there are some freebies for you. One is a book on doing voiceover work. The second is a video on casting secrets, what they don't tell you. But I'm going to tell you in this free 20-minute video. That's all for just signing up and diving into the talent pool. Finally, here's my shout out to my good friends at Actors Connection. By the way, I'm teaching a class in a few weeks. So if you go to actorsconnection.com/New York, I'm actually teaching a one evening, one night event all about your self-tapes. And I'm going to give you some tips. And I promise you at the end of this time together in that one evening, that one-off class, your self-tapes are going to be in the top percentile of consideration when you submit videos. All right. So let's jump into the subject now, shall we? We need to think, before we jump into like the meat of the matter, we need to know and understand why we think we're not getting the acting opportunities. What are the reasons that we think that? Well, I can tell you one is a belief that the agent is not completely upfront about work. I know this is true, that many actors think that the agent isn't really giving the full truth about the situation. That, like, for example, that they're saying things to you like, you know what, there just hasn't been a lot of calls for somebody your type. It's just been kind of quiet out there for you. That's kind of a default setting for some agents, and it may or may not be true. But that sense that the agent isn't being completely upfront about you, understand that that's coming from you. That is probably not the truth. But because you're feeling that way, that can sort of feel like, I don't know, it feels frustrating, doesn't it? Another reason, I know a lot of actors who have this fear of missing out. They have the fear that something else is going on out there without them. And that becomes a default setting. If you feel that way a lot of the time, that you are feeling left out and you have a feeling that other stuff is going on in other places and nothing is happening for you, boy, guess what? That's a very isolating place to be. And I would caution you about taking that track of going down that road. Be careful about taking your own temperature when your head is in a negative space. Okay, somebody write that down. That was really, really good. Here's another reason why we think we aren't getting all of the auditions. Perhaps the usual resources or the usual way you find out about jobs is not bearing any fruit. Now, I know that we've had the strike, but the normal pattern that you've had in the past about finding where the jobs are might not feel and look the same. We're going to address that a little bit further on in the episode. There's also this feeling that it is taking too much time. It just takes too much effort to try to figure out what's going on and how can I get more auditions. And sometimes it's just painful. And when we're in that headspace, being motivated about trying ways to get more auditions can just feel like it's a pain in the ass. It's just too much work and it's hard and we're exhausted. That's all true. There's also another reality that we haven't really talked about yet, and that is maybe there are just less jobs available right now. There just might not be a whole ton going on in your world where you are right now. That's a reality check that really should be thought of before you start thinking about your own internal angst about the lack of jobs. So here's why I think we need to reframe that thought pattern of why can't and why aren't, and that sense of lack. One, please remember that the agent and manager, they have a vested interest in staying in business. They would love nothing more than to have you employed. And so just because you're not getting the kinds of auditions from your agent or manager doesn't mean that they don't like you or that this is a personal thing. And what that means? That means that it's time to connect again with that agent or manager. Let them know that you are taking a class, that you're actively involved in a particular project, a play reading group, or that you've had a seminar with a casting director, or whatever it is. Reconnect with that agent if you're feeling that way, that your agent is keeping or holding something back. Because I promise you, they want you to be working. Also, please remember this. This is a phrase that I use all the time, and it's been very, very helpful, but feelings are not facts. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean it's true. So it also can be the reverse of that. If you feel you are missing out, then guess what? You are. You're creating a world in which your own feelings are being thought of as the truth, and that may or may not be the case. Also, the usual resources, when we talked about that earlier, that the way that you find out about jobs, those resources, guess what? They're always evolving. They're always changing. Perhaps they're targeting a different demographic. For example, if you're going online and using an online service and it just doesn't seem like there's much going on out there, there may be reasons outside of your control. But those resources could also be changing the way in which they present the information. So it just may not include you. That's on them. That's not on you. Another reason, guess what, you guys? I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but here it is again. We're exhausted. Thinking about having to, oh, here comes another list. Here's a new strategy. You know what? That can be really, really painful. The status quo is something that is even hard to maintain sometimes when we're feeling that way. But remember, feelings aren't facts. Also, just to let you know, the strike is just over at the time of this recording. And so it's going to take a little time yet to get things moving. My thought is, in the discussions that we're having with some of the projects that were on hold as a result of the strike, is that things will be picking up and moving on, guess what? After the holidays. That's January 2024. So that's like a month and a half away at the time from the time of this recording. So think about that. It's just time. There's time yet for you to start things moving and getting things in place so you are ready for when they do. And here's some things that you can do right now for getting more auditions. Number one, Add some additional search engines to your routine. Now, you might be getting Actors Access or Backstage, but have you thought of Mandy.com? Are you registered with Casting Frontier? Every medium to large metropolitan office has an office of film and television. They also are listing what projects are shooting right now. Maybe you can get some additional information by going to one of those government offices in your town. I know New York and California, they have a comprehensive list of projects that are shooting at any given time. Have you been to the union websites to look for jobs? Even if you're not a member, you might be able to find a way to get to know about some job postings that are going on out there. Websites, I know that there are a lot of websites that come and go. A lot of websites are just poaching from already established websites and creating their own websites. You kind of have to suss that out a little bit more aggressively. But you know what? Their websites are coming online all the time, and their goal is to try to get information about job opportunities to actors. Additionally, don't hate me for this, social media platforms have been really hot for opportunities. There's a Facebook page, Casting Directors for Actors. There are discussion groups. So there are a lot of things that really warrant some time spent for you to feel a little bit better about where you are in the job approach, in the job spectrum. Here's another suggestion. I want you to think about engaging with other actors on social media. Feeling part of the community is a great way to hear about potential opportunities that are out there. Moving on from that, I think it's time to freshen up your profile page on all of those search job engine sites, whether it's Actors Access, whether it's Backstage.com, if you're registered on any of those places. It's time to really take a look at your profile page. Is there a way that you could retool it? There are some things on there that you should maybe think about taking away? Maybe it's time to freshen up some stuff. Maybe it's time to refilter what you've done and where you're at with some more positive, more exciting information. Really be objective when you look at that stuff, because freshening that up, sometimes I know a lot of actors, they just sort of, they put their resume in and then they, copy and paste, and then they're done with it. And they haven't looked at it or messed with it for a long time. Well, guess what? Now is the time. Now, alluding to something earlier, you need to let your agent know about your strategy. The minute that you start taking those kinds of actions, I promise you, an agent is going to respond in a really positive way when you say, yeah, you know what? I redid a couple of profile pages. I'm taking this class and seminar with a casting director or a manager, and I really am getting a lot out of this training situation. And, you can really paint an exciting picture for yourself with your agent or manager by letting them know. Moving on from there, I just don't think you should allow yourself to compare your situation with others. Now, this is tough, I know, but in that same vein of fear of missing out, we think that, oh my gosh, somebody else is getting all of those jobs. Why aren't I? Somebody else told me about the auditions for this. Why didn't I get that can really be a slippery slope. It's really not healthy for your own headspace. And instead of just kind of wallowing in that painful sensibility, it's really better off for you to take some kind of an action to make it work. That is going to make a difference for you. So be careful about comparing your situation with others. Your journey as an actor is yours alone. So make it worth your time to do the things that you can do to get more auditions. I also suggest that you read up on some new projects that are in the works. For example, reading articles in Theater World or the Hollywood Reporter. There's all kinds of information about new projects that are happening right now. I also think you should research new releases now showing. If you're binging something or a new release on Netflix, for example, make it kind of a research project for yourself. Who's that casting director? I tell you one suggestion, and I know it sounds corny, and forgive me, but for those who do this, you might be surprised. When on occasion we'll get a fan letter from an actor who just really wants to let us know that they really enjoyed the cast of this particular project that we worked on. No, that's very gratifying. Now, I know it might sound like some kind of weird manipulation, but if it's sincere, it's also a great way for you to feel like you're connecting with professionals in the industry. So if you're seeing a new release on something on Netflix, find out who that casting director is. Where was it shot? I promise you, once you start becoming an information gatherer about these new projects, you're going to start seeing articles and the repetition of that casting director's name on other projects. That kind of, here's a good word, edification is just really helpful. It's helpful for your career, but it's also helpful for your emotional well-being because you're in there participating on some level. Also, I want you to stick to the plan. Whatever plan you come up with for getting more auditions, and I made a lot of suggestions so far, stick to that plan. Having a structure is absolutely essential for you to experience success, and getting more auditions is going to be the result. Remember that the only constant is change. Everything is evolving and changing all the time. And you're going to feel ready when you are ready, or you're going to be ready when you feel ready. Make sense? So it's about putting those steps in. And I know you know this, but I just needed to kind of reiterate it for you because I know that there's a lot of pain out there and everyone is exhausted from the strike. And now everyone is exhausted because they don't know what's next. And we put ourselves through so much. You get more auditions when you feel you've applied your creative self with practical decisions for your acting. It is both. Feel good about your forward movement. It's a matter of time before you're going to see the positive results. And the positive results are going to be you're getting more auditions. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. This is Casting Actors Cast. If you've gotten something out of this episode, please do me the favor. Go ahead and give me a like, a share. I would love to hear from you as well. The email address, castingactorscast@gmail.com. Have a great day. Have a great week. And I'll see you next week because I'm going to be here. I hope you are too. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining Casting Actors Cast. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.